On this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we speak with a couple of members from TM Forum on main themes coming out of this year's live event, as well as some key focus areas for the organization moving forward. Thanks for joining us from this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. Well, on this week's show, we have a featured interview with Joanna O'Brien and Carl Piva from TM Forum to discuss the organization's recent live event in Nice, France, including key themes coming out of the event and the organization's focus moving forward. But first, let's take a look at some headlines from across the space over the past week. Well, the Open Network Labs ONOS project unveiled its 7th release targeting an SDN operating system dubbed Goldeneye. ONOS said the Goldeneye release includes advances such as improved adaptive flow monitoring and selective DPI from ETRI, claimed to provide lower overhead flow monitoring and Yang toolchain support from Huawei, integration of northbound intent subsystems with the flow objective subsystem, a 6-time improvement in core performance to support consistent distributed operations, and southbound improvements to Cisco iOS NetConf and Yang toolchain. Collaborators on the latest release included AT&T, the Electronics Telecommunications Research Institute, Fujitsu, and Huawei. Also this week, a new report from Technology Business Research predicts a steady decline in North America infrastructure spending through 2021 as carriers turn to SDN and NFV. The report predicts the market is set to drop from $30.4 billion in 2015 to $27.4 billion in 2021, with the impact coming from operators shifting their focus from network coverage buildouts and redistribute spend from legacy technologies to software-mediated networks, specifically orchestration, automation, SDN, and NFV. TBR notes a majority of LTE coverage was completed by 2014, with current plans focused more on densification efforts that typically don't require the same level of service to deploy. The next move towards 5G technology is not expected to ramp until the 2020 timeframe, though those deployments are expected to initially be more use case driven instead of focused on broad coverage. Equipment vendors are also expected to see a hit to their traditional service contracts, as service-based deployments will not require the same level of vendor upkeep. Well, as previously mentioned, this week's featured interview is with a couple of members of the TM Forum. First with Joanna O'Brien, who is the VP of API and Ecosystems, and Carl Piva, who's the VP of Strategic Programs. We discussed some of the main themes coming out of the recent TM Forum live event, as well as where they see the organization's focusing its efforts over the next year. Let's take a look at that interview now. Well, thanks for joining us for this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. And this week, we're joined by our Carl Piva, who's the VP of Strategic Programs at the TM Forum, to talk a bit about the recent TM Forum live event. So, hey, Carl, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. It's fun.
Great. Well, obviously, the TM Forum live event just wrapped up here recently, and I didn't attend this year's show, but I know we had some coverage coming from the event. It was like a couple people there. But I guess I want to talk a bit with you, Carl, about what you saw from the event. So maybe start off with maybe a general overview from you on maybe what you saw as the biggest trend coming out of this year's TM Forum live event there in Nice, France.
Yeah, you bet. I think the trend this year is kind of a move from why do things into how do things, kind of become more practical. But it's still a lot about digital transformation and how you connect disparate ecosystems and making sense of that whole game-changing aspect in our industry. We are seeing a lot of business transformation driven by digitization, and actually this whole thing it's going to take many years before we are through it. But at last we are seeing some evidence of it, at least. And in order to drive this forward in our constituency, there are a number of things that came out of the conference, including things like the Open API Manifesto, a continued push on virtualization, and other aspects like that certainly moved it forward. I also think, as a general comment, when you organize an event, you can't kind of experience it the same way. But what we were really, really happy with is the seniority of the audience. So even though we had a number of people at the event this year, passing 3,000 people, including staff, we actually had the most senior audience ever. So 450 CXOs, which is the record for us. And that really means, and that really shows that this event is taken more and more seriously, and people who come can actually make some serious good personal connections as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know obviously as you put the events on, I'm sure you're kind of running around behind the scenes, making sure everything works. You got your own panels you have to deal with. So yeah, I know for you guys who are there, it's a bit more of a struggle for you guys, but I know from attending past events, again, it's a really well put on event. And it's a good point you bring up because it does seem like over the past couple of years, it was a lot of why should I be doing this? And it did seem, at least the coverage from this year, it was more of how to do it now. I mean, even last
you're right.
Yeah, even last year was a bit of a how part, but this year it seems like that is definitely kind of what's growing is people want to know, okay, I know we need to make these transitions to this more digitized world, whether it's virtualization, NFV, SDN, whatever it is, but it does seem like it's becoming more and more now. People want to know, okay, now how do I do this?
Exactly. And it's more and more clear to people that since other industries are, infinitely complicated, right? You can't be a master of everything. It's hard enough to understand the industry you live in. So to identify and drive the bridges between industries and the things that connect industries together, so that we can find a common platform for solving those kind of common least denominator kind of problems. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that I think we moved forward on quite substantially this year. And we also introduced a few new things. We had a dedicated smart city track at the event that drew some 300 people into throughout the event, including workshops and hackathons and so on. So I think we are finally coming to the point where we can actually see some real traction here. Also, something we're scaling up, and if you missed it this year, but you saw kind of the first part of that last year. Yeah. Last year we had 18 or 19 catalysts at the event with some 3 to 5 different companies in each, and including champions as well. Mm-hmm. And those are, as you know, kind of quick prototype projects where you proof out the concept and then you move on to the next thing. This year we expanded that to 30 different catalyst projects. I think that's also something that demonstrates the people's interest and willingness to move from the kind of how to the what, to see what actually works out. And it's kind of a mix of business model innovation, if you like, and having kind of the technical angle coming from below to sort of meet that business model transformation. So it's sort of both coming from the top level where people try to figure out how do I innovate my business processes? How do I innovate my business model? How can I make new things happen? And that meets then the technical kind of capabilities that are provided by many of the members.
Yeah, no, I would say those catalyst programs have always been very interesting. I think a couple of years ago when I was there, I think there were maybe like 6 or 7, and then last year I think there were like maybe a dozen. And it sounds like now that you're almost 20 this year. And what's interesting about those to me, it always seems, is that you do have those champions of those where you've got maybe a larger operator or somebody who's involved in these. And at least from the media's point of view, it's great to kind of see a larger operator like that kind of really driving some of these innovations. Because it's a nice, for us, it's a nice hook for the story, but it does show that these operators are getting very involved in these programs.
Yeah, and there are many practical reasons for them to get involved as well. So for instance, Orange, who is one of the major ones who take part in almost every catalyst project we do, but they are not alone for sure, right? Yeah. But they see it as a shared R&D. So if they get involved here doing catalyst project with us, they can share R&D spend with others. And that's a good proposition. If you can start sharing things that you need, since you will need to figure this one out anyway, and R&D budgets are not getting bigger, right? Why not share it? Why not get the best out of everybody? And that's kind of the drive. I think that's the direction that this is going in. Also, I think people are shying away a little bit from doing a kind of long-term 3-year kind of projects where that takes forever and you need to define everything in the minute detail. What people want are fast, quick things that show immediate value that you can start using kind of next quarter. And if you can't, you kind of miss the game a little bit. So we need to be, as an organization, we need to move with this sort of trend and be both better at it, but also kind of push the envelope a bit when it comes to making this happen.
Yeah, that's a great point. It does seem like the market, the industry, at least in the telecom space, is trying to move a bit more towards this, I guess you want to call it fail fast, or I hate that term, but succeed fast, or whatever it's going to be, but rapidly turning things up and down. And obviously as you... I think fail fast is a pretty good one, because if you think about a business model today, it's about setting up a set of assumptions of what you're going to accomplish. And you need to very quickly identify prove those assumptions right or wrong. Yeah.
And every time you prove something wrong, you need to pivot and come up with a new approach that can take you in the right direction. And this needs to be happening in an agile, iterative way. And to me, there's no better way than try to bring together some of the best minds of in the business in an environment that makes it possible to fail fast, but also to succeed. So that's a good point. I think this is something that we are that are supported by some of the announcements we made as well in the 2 weeks ago. So, for instance, the Open API Manifesto, that's a very interesting area. I think you will talk to Joanna about it in more detail later on, but yeah. It's really something where we have the world's largest and most influential service providers coming together to back a common set of APIs, all REST-based or all open APIs that have been developed by the forum members over the last 18 months, and actually to mandate that these APIs will be used by suppliers. Simply by putting them into RFPs going forward, starting next year. So by being able to do that, we will drive a whole new way of unity, really, when it comes to how people can interact between disparate islands of in different ecosystems out there. Yeah. Because all these APIs they're all about how you partner in a digital world.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing you were working a bit on, I think, was that smart city maturity benchmark that I think came out as well as part of the show. Can you talk a bit about what that is, and I guess the importance of that? I guess what's Team Inform looking to accomplish with that kind of benchmark?
You bet. So we have put forward now what we believe is the first end-to-end smart city maturity and benchmark model. It really captures everything from a holistic perspective of what it means for a city to transform into a smarter city. So not just looking at one of the subdomains or very detailed into one of the specific ICT domains, for instance. It looks at everything from things like leadership and governance to a relentless focus on citizen experience to ICT, to how you use data, to the levels of smartness in your city. What we will do with this model is to allow several hundreds of cities this year to go through it, so that they can learn their own as-is situation by a self-assessment, really. And when they have a firm and good understanding of exactly where they are at, they can then start benchmarking themselves against others, and also to identify where they should be better. So use this model not just to sort of look at where are we now, but actually to use it to define the wanted position. Where should we be now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And when you have that mix between your as-is and your wanted position, you can start actually defining very clear and concise programs that will take you into that forward direction. What I think is really cool with the model as well is we have provided for each and one of the statements we have in the model, and there are 225 individual statements. For every single statement, we have a reference to global best practice. So not just TM Forum stuff, but actually global best practices from anything from the British Standards Institute to NIST to Smart Cities Council to, you name it. Mm-hmm. And we try to pull together all this enormous amount of information that's out there and make it more easily consumable and understandable for a city official who might not have the time or or inclination for that matter to go through it all.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess as the Team Inform, are you guys reaching out to cities about this, or I guess how would cities get involved in I guess tapping into this benchmark survey?
Yeah, you bet. So any city can come, and for free they can take part of the base maturity model and the base benchmarking aspect of this. In fact, we are moving ahead with a couple of cities in the US, Atlanta included, and some cities in China, namely the 200 smart cities in their smart city pilot program. So in pending, that this goes as we believe it will go, we will have our first results in September. And we will present them at our Incheon event in China, which is our next big smart city event, where we will take these findings from the 200s of the smartest cities in China and bring it forward. I think that will be a very interesting learning experience for a lot of us, because we just don't know what that joint approach is. not for everybody. And it will be extremely interesting to start to compare, to start to see what do they do better than we do, and vice versa. What do cities like Atlanta do better than they do? And we can start drawing some best practice and make some very good recommendations based on that. And I think the beauty of the smart city movement is it really affects us all, right? So it's something that you and I, we can actually care about it as individuals, because we are all soon living in cities, even if we aren't living in cities now.
Yeah. All right. Yes. I mean, so obviously the impact it's going to have on people. And again, like you said, we all live in cities, and it's going to impact us. But also, it's going to have a huge impact on the telecom market in general, just because the telecom providers are going to have to almost be central to this rollout of new infrastructure to kind of support what these smart cities are going to offer. So I'm guessing you guys are seeing a lot of interest, I'm guessing, from the telecom operator community as well, in terms of this move towards smart cities too.
Yes. I mean, virtually nobody has missed the train, right? Lots of people are on it. Maybe not, everybody might not be in the kind of the forward part of the train yet.
Yeah.
But everybody's still sort of, they might be sitting on the roof, some of them. But anyway, and we want to help this train, pick up some steam and speed. Yeah. And really, when we look at it, many of the service providers and their vendors out there have actually solved a number of the problems that these cities have and are faced with now. The challenge is these cities haven't been haven't had to dealt with some of these issues up until very recently. So, for instance, what do you do with millions of IP connected pieces of equipment? What do you do with millions of citizens who suddenly not just relate to you via some sort of a paper form, once a year, but they would like to have online customer experience as well, just like you have with other companies and organizations? What do you do with the massive amounts of data that you suddenly need to understand, and or with all the privacy and security concerns, layered on top of that cake? And it's all those kind of problems. Some of them have been successfully handled already by the service provider community. And even if we who have been living in that environment may think that, we haven't sorted it all out, we are still very, very advanced compared to some of these cities. And I think we have an obligation to drive and help in that transformation. And there is nobody as well positioned as service providers to actually make it happen. And there's a big if here, you have, as a service provider, you need to be able to partner effectively. And if you're not able to partner effectively and bring that other part of the ecosystem together, you will only play this remote little role and be controlled by somebody else. But I think the more innovative service providers, they see this as an opportunity where they can rise in the value chain, where they can play a much more significant role for society and for smarter cities as well. And that's the kind of journey we would like to take our constituency on, and that's kind of the train that we hope that the forum members would like to help fuel and put some power behind, so we can actually move there quicker.
So I'm guessing, again, for kind of the movement that's happening in the industry, obviously it's a very daunting task, it seems like, again, to make this evolution for the telecom market from where it's been to where it's going to go. Again, I'm guessing from what you're seeing out there, the operators are looking to get on board, like you said, but again, it's got to be a huge challenge for these guys.
Yeah, the challenge is enormous, of course. I think the problem is less technology and more business model oriented. What is it that you need to do and how? And again, coming back to our practical catalyst, we have a few good examples from the show floor this year, including the Milton Keynes example in the UK. That really shows what you can do if you're a service provider and you have and you want to have a good approach into a city. So what should you be doing? How can you do it? What roles can you play? We need to combine this roadmap of challenges with what's practically possible to implement and where service providers have their sweet spot. If we're able to do that, I think service providers will play a significant role in the smart city movement going forward.
All right, well, now we are joined by Joanna O'Brien, who's the VP of API and Ecosystems at TM Forum, to talk a bit about her view on the recent TM Forum live event. So, hey, Joanna, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hi, Dan. Nice. Yeah, great to see you.
Good deal. So yeah, maybe I guess what's your overall view coming out of the show yourself? I mean, obviously there's a lot of news that came out of the event. It seemed like, talking from Carl, again, a bigger and bigger show each year. I know from going to it myself, it's always a great show to attend. But I guess what did you see as kind of your big takeaway from this year's TM4 Live event?
Yeah, there was a lot of energy from the event. I loved the diversity and the interaction. You know, there was a really, really strong vibe, and from the event this year. There was also, I guess, we had a lot of new people from a lot of new places. I really enjoyed that. That brought another new kind of booster, burst of energy into the event. But I guess what all these new people were doing and talking about were how they could apply what was going on at the forum, the broader forum itself, and how it was relevant into what they were doing. So that was particularly cool for me because as leading on the API programs, we had 16 of the catalysts were demonstrating how you could use the APIs in what they were doing. And this was across lots of different sectors, from automated robots to, health features and things like that. So that was fantastic to see that, major shift from, we have this idea of APIs to people actually using it on the show floor. So I love that. I love that vibrancy. I love the fact that we were genuinely had moved into engaging audiences from different vectors and bringing them together, talking about how their digital business could be enabled and shaped through the forum and the work of the forum, the collaboration, and then the assets. So to me, that was the massive new energy that I really enjoyed and loved at the event.
Yeah, that's great. I will say, whenever you go to these events, especially the TM4 Live event, it's always interesting to get, like you said, kind of the diverse people there representing just odd, things that you don't even think about, but you see them all at this event, and you're right, you do get some crazy, not crazy ideas, but interesting ideas on ways to use some work with TM4. And it's interesting. It's always a very, like you said, a very interesting, vibrant kind of atmosphere. So yeah, I would agree. It's definitely always a fun event that way.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to talk to you a bit about, I know obviously with the API program, I know that was one of the announcements that came out of the show was the open API work that TM4 is doing. And I know that you're very central to a lot of that. I guess can you talk a bit about what the announcement was and I guess the importance of that for TM4 and for the members also?
Yeah, maybe if I even step back a little bit and explain kind of where the concept of the APIs came from and how we've evolved it. So I guess it's about 2 years ago, we put forward the notion of simplifying the interfaces that have been used extensively across the telecommunications sector. So TM4, you may or may not realize, have a whole suite of API, the traditional interfaces like OSSJ, MTNN, MTOSI, etc. These are widely adopted across telco. And we were looking at, well, really in this new world, in order to create the agility, in order to streamline operations, across telecommunications operator, you need something much more lightweight. You need to be REST-based, but also the extensiveness was too much. So we designed a program of these open, lightweight, extensible APIs, and we've been building those collaboratively with our members, not us. It really is a joint effort across the industry. We've a lot of companies who are leading the effort in this charge. So at present we have about 18 APIs in the portfolio, in the suite. We've been doing lots of different activities between DevFest to help scale the development of new APIs. People contribute APIs, and we have a whole system in place for how to manage that. And then we also run things like hackathons to show how you can use these APIs in many different contexts. So after that, we held a hackathon just ahead of Nice, and that was very successful. And then leading into that, then at the Nice event, at the TM4 Live event in Nice, we had a major announcement where 9 of the world's largest telecommunications operators have agreed and signed a manifesto. And the manifesto essentially says that they endorse, they will adopt and use, endorse, and then also demand as part of their procurement process these APIs from 2017, but many have said they're already doing that, but officially from the 2017 timeframe.
All right, and now, Joanna, I guess maybe looking forward a bit over the next year or so. Obviously, like you said, the Open API program itself, you mentioned the partners are going to start using it beginning in 2017. They're already using it now. I guess as you look forward a bit over the next 12 months or so, what's maybe a big focus for you and your work at TM Forum? What do you expect to happen between now and the next TM Forum Live event next year?
Sure. Okay. I guess I would categorize the activities into 3 streams of activities. There's the collaborative work where we continue to build new APIs, consume feedback on existing APIs, and take contributions from APIs and have the whole system around that so that we can scale and grow. So we're actually meeting next week in London to work on all of that with the whole team. We've then around that we're building out the compliance capability for companies to self-test their ability to comply with the API so that they can gain that endorsement from the service providers. And then also we, run a whole series of events and activities around this. So I guess the communications drumbeat of the API program would be the other piece, and that'll be a whole series of things like hackathons and online events and communications, participation with other organizations and things like that. So we work very collaboratively across the industry, and we'll just continue on that and just make it bigger and stronger.
Got it. So basically you come back from the show, you get a week break, and then it's back at it again for the next 51 weeks of the year then.
Yeah. A lot of fun though.
Yeah, very good. Hey, Joann, we definitely appreciate the insight on this today. Obviously, it was a great event, it sounds like. I know we had some great coverage from there too, but we definitely appreciate the great insight today. Thanks so much for the time.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Great to talk to you.
Thanks. Well, that'll do it for this week's show. Make sure to check us out again next week when we are scheduled to speak with F5 on the need for more concurrency in NFV deployments. Thanks for watching.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.